Lise Vaugeois. I'm the MPP for Thunder Bay Superior North, and I'm also the critic for WSIB and injured workers. We're here this morning to talk about the WSIB strike that is taking place, and we are here with Fred Hahn from CUPE, Harry Gosselin from the union representing these workers, Jamie West, our labour critic, and Kelly. And I'm going to pass things over to Kelly to give really the frontline workers' perspective on what's happening.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Kelly. I'd like to read a letter I want my employer to hear. I'm a case manager in the Serious Injury Program at WSIB. Every day I speak to people whose lives have just shattered and fallen apart from a catastrophic workplace accident. I'm often the first person they speak to after they lose everything. I walk with them and their families through grief, trauma, and unbearable uncertainty. I'm there for their families when they take their last breath on earth. There are no scripts for this work, just presence, compassion, and the relentless expectation to give more of myself than I ever thought I could. I've taken calls with spouses who just watched their loved ones lifeless and kept alive by machines in the ICU, uncertain if they'd reunite. I've stayed in the line while parents wept over their child's injuries long after my shift ended, while my own children cried for me. I let those workers and their families cry, scream, yell, and I hold their hand through it all, because someone has to, and I know how much that moment matters. When I returned from maternity leave, I did so early, during the holiday season, to support my overwhelmed coworkers. I did not receive proper office equipment in time, and despite clear signs my body was breaking down, I kept showing up. I now live with a workplace injury I sustained while trying to serve WSIB and the people of Ontario. But here's what bothers me. I do all of this because I believe in the mission of WSIB, but I question whether WSIB believes in me. I've given my mind, body, and soul to WSIB. This strike isn't just about wages. It's about dignity. It's about respect. It's about emotional labor that's gone unseen for too long, and the growing weight of unsustainable workloads that my brothers and sisters carry alone. We are the ones who take the call after the crash, the fall, the blast, when their forever has already changed. We are the ones who stay with them in their darkest moments and help carry their grief because they can't carry it alone. We are the ones that are there when their world is in free fall and no one knows what to do. We are the ones that explain end-of-life benefits while someone's world is ending. We are the ones who hear the cries that come from a soul breaking apart and trauma tearing its way out, the kind you carry home and stays with you always. That's what we do, and it can't be measured in volume alone or quantified. I never thought I'd be standing outside the building with a picket sign instead of sitting inside on a call with a grieving family. I mourn for the fact that I can't be there for the families and injured people who need care while we're on strike. But here we are, not because we want to be, but because we have no choice. We will return when it's right, when our voices are heard, when the care and expertise we give is reflected in the offer that we receive. We show up for the people of Ontario when their lives fall apart. We're just asking for someone to show up for us too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for sharing that powerful and important story. My name's Fred Hahn. I'm proud to represent nearly 300,000 broader public sector workers across the province, including the incredible, dedicated, and skilled workers in the Ontario Compensation Employees Union, CUPE Local 1750, who work at the WSIB. I need to stress that crushing workloads are deeply impacting services at the WSIB. That hurts workers like Kelly and her coworkers. And it hurts injured workers she and her colleagues support across Ontario. Every day, people who've been injured at work, whose lives have changed in an instant due to a workplace accident, are waiting to have help from WSIB case managers, return-to-work specialists, dedicated customer support staff who are left out on a picket line because the WSIB isn't negotiating in good faith. WSIB CEO Jeff Lang had to admit that his original statements that the employer was, quote, doing all it can in bargaining were actually inaccurate, and he was forced to retract it. The strike is stretching into its third week. So instead of trying to spin a narrative in the media, he really needs to instruct his team to come up with a real proposal that addresses workload. The Ford Conservatives have allowed the WSIB to hand $4 billion back to employers. That money could have been used to both increase payments and supports to injured workers and deal with the toxic workloads to support workers at the WSIB. Even with this massive give back to employers, the WSIB is in surplus. So money's not the issue here. We're very concerned that ideology might be. Even though the Premier wants us to see him as Captain Canada, Ford appointees on the board of WSIB are sending 26 jobs to the U.S. through a contract with Iron Mountain. Sending Ontario jobs to a U.S. corporation while we're in a trade war. And refusing to allow these workers to catch up after the unconstitutional depression of their wages under Bill 124. Just yesterday, the Conservatives passed Bill 5. It gives ministers and cabinet never-before-seen powers to set up special economic zones and waive every law, every local bylaw, trample on requirements for full consultation and consent with Indigenous communities. This move puts the very worst of Trump-style U.S. governing by executive order here in Ontario, at a time when we need to lean in to what makes our province, our country, unique from our neighbours from the south. But we've seen this before from the Ford Conservatives in their first term. There was the unconstitutional Bill 124 that violated the Charter of Rights. In their second term, Bill 28, that pushed us to the brink, as close as we have ever been, to a province-wide general strike in Ontario as it attacked CUPE education workers. And now in their third term, Bill 5, a direct attack on communities across the province. We know Ontarians have fought back against these measures in the past. We'll continue to fight Bill 5 with Indigenous leaders and communities, with environmental groups and activists, with anyone who cares about the rule of law in Ontario. And we have no doubt that we will win because we have fought them and won before. But this is all about a pattern, it seems, of bullying workers. And it is being felt at bargaining tables across the province, including in this round of bargaining with workers at the WSIB. This is not the way to unite our province in the face of attacks of a trade war. This is not the way to support systems like workers' compensation that help make our province strong. This is the last thing the workers at the WSIB, injured workers across the province, any of us need. What we need is for this strike to come to an end. That means we need the government to instruct the WSIB to come back to the table with a fair deal. If they actually want to support workers, then they need to remember that actions speak louder than words. Now, I'm very proud to turn things over to the leader of Local 1750, longtime President Harry Gosselin.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Harry Gosselin. I am the president of Ontario Compensation Employees Union, and as Fred mentioned, a proud member of CUPE. I represent the workers at the Workplace Safety Insurance Board, also known as WSIB. And I'm privileged to be standing here next to Kelly Allen, who is a member of our local, and Fred Hahn, the president of CUPE Ontario, and Jamie West, the Ontario NDP Labour critic, and Lise Van Schwa, the WSIB critic. We have great allies beside us. WSIB workers serve workers, their families, and employers in Ontario, providing compensation for loss of earnings and health care coverage for workers who suffered a traumatic injury, have been exposed to diseases at work, and in some cases, sadly, have lost their lives. Those workers and their families need our help to make it through what can be one of the most challenging moments in anyone's life. WSIB employees wake up thinking about the injured that need help. They put in extra hours. They go to bed worried about those they could not help because of workload. The next day, they get up and they do it all again. This is not sustainable. My co-workers put the well-being of Ontario's injured ahead of their own wellness. And they do this because they care. Sadly, this dedication comes at a cost to personal wellness for those delivering the services. Kelly and the passion she has for the work is not alone in her lived experiences. The stress she and her co-workers carry and the impact that has on their mental health is real. In fact, according to a workload survey that was created by and peer-reviewed by scientists around the world, concluded that in 10 years of conducting the survey in Canada, the WSIB in Ontario has the worst results. The results show that WSIB is a toxic workplace with anxiety and depression that are nearly double the national average. Things are so dire that the lead researcher told WSIB the evidence makes it clear that there are employees that are at risk of losing their life to suicide. Did WSIB do anything with this information? The answer is no. They stuck their head in the sand and ignored the facts. Those responsible must be and will be held to account. I want to be perfectly clear that we are taking a stand right now, this year, this round of bargaining, to address systemic workload problems and to end our employers' workplace bullying behavior. Despite our best efforts to reach a deal, WSIB management has refused to do better. Better for their employees, better for the organization, and better for the Ontarians we are here to serve. The surface bargaining of WSIB shows us the real colors of the WSIB leadership. They have turned their back on Ontario's injured by prolonging this lockout. It is the employees who are on the picket line that are the true caretakers of Ontario's injured. We serve 5.6 million Ontario workers. We are the ones that have the sleepless nights, worrying about the claims we could not get to because of work overload. The union did not want this strike. It was the employer that set the date to terminate the collective agreement. It is the employer that refuses to negotiate a fair deal that addresses problems in our workplace like work overload, and it is the employer that refuses to restore wages that have fallen well below inflation. We can't allow our employer to exploit our compassion for injured workers to force a deal that puts us further behind. And we know Ontarians don't want that. But does Premier Ford want us to fall further behind? We are the little guys that need help, and yet, by not supporting fairness, our Premier has turned his back on WSIB employees and Ontario's injured. This year, the Ford government gave direction to WSIB to refund over $4 billion of the WSIB surplus to Ontario employers. The WSIB is a multi-billion-dollar organization that is funded at 118%, even after giving $4 billion away. Just a fraction of that $4 billion would more than cover the cost of improving the working conditions for our members. But instead of working with us to improve our services for workers in Ontario who rely on us, management has left us with no other recourse but to take to the picket lines for 2 weeks and counting. The WSIB is not funded by taxpayers. Funding comes solely from Ontario employers, and our negotiations has zero impact on the Ontario budget. If the $4 billion is not bad enough, the Ford government has also backed the spending of millions on American companies, including one that will result in a layoff of 26 Ontario employees. And I ask, why is Captain Canada taking an elbows-down approach when it comes to his appointees at WSIB? Doug Ford is directly responsible. I am calling on the Ford government and Minister Passini to do their job and get these negotiations on the right path, to do what's right and what's good for WSIB workforce, good for the organization, and good for the Ontarians we serve. When the workers who deliver the very services Ontario relies on are struggling, it has an unavoidable impact on service delivery. I know we can do better. We have to do better. The WSIB has been around for over 110 years and has never been on strike before. But things are so bad that my coworkers came out in a show of force and voted 96% in favor of strike action. And we are now moving into the third week of a government-endorsed lockout. Our employers dreaming if they think that we will accept a deal that includes employer cuts, that fails to address the very real systemic work overload problem, toxic micromanagement, and does not include fair compensation. Workers have all too often observed management rationalize their raises and bonuses. In fact, our CEO's salary and bonuses double the Premier's wages, even with the increase they just gave themselves. It's workers who feel the sting of inflation. We're ready to do whatever it takes to get a fair and just deal. We've got amazing allies beside us, and I hope WSIB leadership will step up and work with us to elevate the WSIB, improve health and safety for its own employees, and get a deal that does not leave us behind. Now, I would like to invite the press that is here today, and those who have joined virtually, if they have any questions.
For those virtually, please press star 1. Your first question will be from Shane Mercer, Key Media, Toronto.
Hi there, Harry. Shane here from Canadian Occupational Safety. First, curious about the current state of negotiations. When was the last pass and response, and are you still at the bargaining table? The fact that you're holding this press conference makes me think that perhaps negotiations have broken off.
Thanks, Shane. Nice to hear from you. The negotiations seem to have stalled. Last Sunday, we were bargaining in person. WSIB refused to meet with us to receive the union's full pass, full counter on all outstanding matters. And we have not heard back from WSIB since Sunday night. So I would say shame on them. They are the caretakers of the injured workers in Ontario, and where are they? They're not stepping up for them, and they're not stepping up for their own employees by sitting behind their closed doors, enjoying their big paychecks.
The next question for you. The union made a claim that 20,000 claims are currently unregistered because of the strike. The WSIB says that number is not accurate at all. In fact, they say there's 0 unregistered claims. What's your response to that?
You know, I wish Ontarians could believe what the leadership at WSIB puts out there, what they say, what comes from their mouths. Time and time again, we keep establishing that the information they're putting out there cannot be relied upon. There is no way that the organization can perform the work of 3,600 people that are out on strike. It is insane for them to even suggest that they are able to do that. We know that there are over 700 claims that come in each day. I heard a report that they've only have a fraction of the thousands of claims that have been approved. And we understand that as of last week, from our inside resources that there is over 20,000 backlog of injured worker claims and a backlog of registering employers so for their businesses and for them to get clearance certificates to be able to bid on jobs in the construction sector in particular. So things are slowing down, things are backing up. We're worried about the backlog of workload for when we do go back into the office, because things will be even worse than they are when we went out. Thank you.